Today we're going to be talking about 5 self-care practices that you can do anywhere. Are you a Catholic wife grappling with challenging in-laws? The Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast is your sanctuary for navigating the sometimes stormy seas of life with in-laws while being validated for what you've experienced. Join me, your host, Miriam Susan, a Catholic wife who's weathered nearly 3 decades of in-law drama, as we tackle the tough issues you're dealing with head on. Hi, Miriam Susan here, and today I wanted to talk about 5 self-care practices that you can do anywhere. Now, this is going to be released on Good Friday, so happy Good Friday, happy Easter season. And I wanted to give you some tools that you can put in your back pocket if you're anticipating a stressful weekend visiting or seeing your in-laws. And I just wanted to come up with some simple things that you can do no matter where you are that can help you to not get into that thought spiral where your anxiety kicks up, your heart rate's going up, you start to get a migraine. Maybe you have a child coming into the church over the weekend. Maybe this is your first Easter vigil. This is your first Easter within the church. So I say, welcome to the Catholic Church. And maybe you have a big event this weekend. Maybe everybody is coming over to your house because you're hosting Easter lunch. Whatever it is, these are 5 things that you can truly do anywhere. So let's jump right in. Number 1, this is my go-to thing that I recommend women do if they're having spiraling thoughts, if their anxiety is kicking up, and all it requires is a cell phone or some device with internet and YouTube, preferably with earbuds. And it is to listen to a track on YouTube, or you can find it on Apple, iTunes, or wherever, called Weightless by Marconi Union. And it looks like it's macaroni, but it's Marconi Union. Weightless by Marconi Union. And what it is, it's not a traditional like music track. It is a scientifically proven track of, I'll just call it music for ease's sake, that has been proven to decrease anxiety by, I want to say, like 65%. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it is this kind of weird combination of beats and tones and sounds that miraculously, as you listen to it and you really are able to focus on it, will reduce your anxiety. It will calm your heart rate down. And as your brain is focusing on these sounds, and they change a lot, so it takes a lot to kind of focus, it keeps you from thinking the spiraling thoughts that got you to need to listen to this in the first place. Now, they have one track that I think is around 8 to 10 minutes, and they also have one that's like hours and hours long. So I don't really like to have my earbuds in my ears for that long. I have fallen asleep to it and then woken up later because my earbuds started hurting in my ears, and so I took them out. But I think it is best listened to with earbuds because then it kind of drowns out any outside noise. But I think no matter what's going on, you can find time, or you can make the time to say, you know what, I'm just going to step away for just a minute, go into a room, pull out your earbuds, pop them in, and listen to this track for 8 minutes. Surely somebody can step into your spot. They can deal without you for 8 minutes, so you can just calm down and get those thoughts out of the spiral that they're in by listening to Weightless by Marconi Union. Number 2 is something I just did. Take a deep breath. I think we often forget how simple and how helpful it is for us to just stop, take a deep breath, breathing in through our nose, exhale through our mouth. Some people like to do it to a count. So say breathe in for 4, hold your breath for 4 seconds, and breathe out for 4 seconds. This is not anything scientific that I have come up with. There are certain patterns that I have heard that it is helpful to take that pause in between and hold your breath to get your heart rate down. But that's something that you can excuse yourself to go to the bathroom and do these simple breathing techniques. And it does help to just take a moment, take a deep breath, and just doing that. It's like you're exhaling out some of the stress. And if you're dealing with a stressful situation with your in-laws, that's sometimes all you have time to do. And you can do it just by going into the bathroom. It takes literally seconds. You can get it done and help calm yourself down. And really, all of these self-practices are not to do anything but help you get through a stressful situation. I know what it's like to have this agenda planned out for me where I have to be on and in front of my in-laws and interacting with them and keeping an eye on the kids for a whole day, sometimes even longer if it was during the time when we would go to my in-laws and spend the night. And I wish I had a simple list like this to just bring me back into myself, because sometimes I feel like when I'm spiraling, it's like who I am is kind of lost because I can't even think straight. And I need something to bring me back down to a normal level of stress that I can handle, because my stress easily has been able to ramp up in the past to where it would result in adrenal fatigue crashes, and then I was toast in the bed for 3 days. So the third suggestion I'd like to offer you for a self-care practice that you can do anywhere is to take a walk. Now, this is the perfect thing to do if you have amazing spring weather, maybe even if you don't. Sometimes it's fun to take a walk in the rain if you are adequately dressed. But just go take a walk. If you have kids, this is the perfect thing to do to get them outside of the house, get them walking, get them in the sunshine. And if you don't have to take your kids, maybe that's even better, because then you don't have to worry about cars and dogs and any other things that could be hazards for them. But just go take a walk. And maybe by yourself is best. And just say, you know what? I want to just take a walk. I want to enjoy the weather. I want to enjoy looking at the flowers. I want to enjoy looking at the trees. Where we live right now in the South, the trees are just blooming. Of course, they're throwing pollen everywhere, but it's so beautiful outside. And it's just a reminder to me that God allows us to come out of a dormant period, just like our winters that we come out of. We come out of this dormant period and there is new life. And spring always is a time of hope. And of course, we've got Easter and the hope and new life that is given to us as a gift by our Savior, Jesus Christ. It's just a great time to go out and take a walk and reflect on all these things and give yourself the opportunity to focus on something besides the stress that might be going on in your home, the stress that's going on in your in-laws' home or wherever you're visiting. If you're having to see your in-laws and it is a stressful situation, just going out and taking a walk and enjoying the beauty that is around you can be so recharging. And that's what we need sometimes, right? When we're dealing with our in-laws and it just seems like it's on and on and you don't get a break. If you don't feel comfortable leaving your kids, obviously bring them along with you. Turn it into a nature walk. Have them find, sticks. Tell them to look for a leaf that's in the shape of a heart, and tell them to look for, puddles of water, or see if they can find any bugs, and just make it something fun to get your mind off the stressful situation that caused you to need to get out and take a walk. Number 4, go to bed early. I used this many times when we were visiting my in-laws, especially in the later years, because early on in our marriage, my husband and I would stay up and we would quote unquote visit with his parents after the children went to bed. And these visiting sessions, sometimes they were okay. They were not all bad, but they would last until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And you know that if you have little kids and they go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock or earlier, they don't care that you were up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. They're going to wake up when they wake up. And so we would stay up so late and we would be so exhausted the next morning. And then we're short with the kids, and everything else just amplifies, right? When you're tired, everything is more stressful. Everything is just more when you don't get enough sleep. So we started to go to bed early, and we started to turn in when our children went to bed. And that was just an easy way. The kids are saying goodnight to grandma and grandpa, aunts and uncles, cousins, whatever. Okay, we'll see you in the morning, mom and dad included. And we would go up and we would get the kids ready for bed, make sure they got teeth brushed, pajamas on, all that good stuff. And we would turn in. Now, we didn't usually turn in and go to bed, but we would just sit up and talk and just have time for me and my husband to reconnect and to recharge during those stressful visits. And I don't know if this is how it is for you, but whenever we would go and spend time with my in-laws, it was like we didn't really spend time together as a family. It was like my husband would go off and he would hang out with his dad, or he would go off hunting, and then I'd be home with the kids and talking with my mother-in-law or trying to manage the kids and making sure that they had stuff to eat. So at the end of the day, it was like, okay, hey, honey, hi. Let's connect again, because we haven't really spent time together connecting throughout the day. So going to bed early allows you that clean break. It's not go put the kids to bed and then come back for more rehashing. It's a nice line that you can put in the sand. It's a nice limitation you can put in place where it's like, you know what, the kids are going to bed. We're kind of tired. We're gonna turn in too. And that not only prevents what generally happened for us, which is ending up in gossip after the kids went to bed, or just talk that was not necessary. And sometimes with my in-laws, I felt like a lot of conversations were fishing for information, and I didn't like that. It was almost like my mother-in-law had this mystical way of getting me to say a lot more than I ever wanted to say, because I'm honest. So if somebody asks me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. And she knew that. And toxic people know what your strengths are, and they will manipulate and use them against you. So I didn't like having to be in conversations where later on I think, gosh, why did I say that? That was so stupid of me. I shouldn't have said that, because I got tricked into saying it. I got tricked into replying honestly. And so going to bed early not only curtailed that in the evenings when I was tired and I wasn't necessarily thinking as clearly, but again, also would allow me an opportunity to reconnect with my spouse, to get to bed at a decent time so that we could be up in the morning, well rested when the kids were up, to be on again for the next day. Now, finally, the fifth self-care practice that you can do anywhere, it's definitely not the least, but I saved it for last, and that is to pray. Unless you have anti-religiously militant in-laws who don't like your faith at all, which I get it. There are some out there who are just not understanding at all of people who have faith, who want to practice their faith, who take their faith seriously. Unless that is the case, you shouldn't have any problem saying, you know what, I'm just going to go spend some time in prayer. If you have religious in-laws, then I would hope that they would be at least accepting of that, of the idea that, okay, well, she wants to go pray. She wants to go spend time with the Lord. Let her go do that. You can decide that if you have a nightly practice of praying the rosary with your family, guess what? You can do that. You can very simply state, we're going to go pray our family rosary. If you get any pushback, say, you know what? This is something we do every night. It's not something we wanted to take out just because we're in a different place. We're going to go do this. We'll be back down in 15, 20 minutes. And that's it. And if your in-laws want to join in on that practice, then of course that's up to you if you want to do that. So I would think about that ahead of time and think, if you do have Catholic in-laws and they are ones that might be willing to join in with you praying the rosary, then consider that they might want to participate with you, but you don't have to. You don't have to pray the rosary with them. If that's something that your family does every night, then by all means, this is something that's important to us, Mom and Dad. We're going to go up and pray the rosary as a family, or you can just say we're going to go pray as a family, and we'll be back down in about 20 minutes. And that's it. If you do have pushback, like I said, you can just be very matter of fact. Well, this is something we do. This is important to our family. We don't change just because we're in a different location. We'll be back in 15 to 20 minutes. Now, obviously, you don't want to pick a time where, it's right before dinner and it's going to mess up dinner plans, or everybody was going to watch a family movie and the kids are going to be anxious to watch the movies. Okay, well, we're going to do this before you play the movie. We'll be back before it starts. And that's it. I think a lot of us have problems, some issues, feeling like we're being rude, we're being mean when we are, I don't even want to say confrontational, because it's not being confrontational, but feeling like you're being confrontational by pushing back a little bit when your in-laws or other family members push back on what you want to do. But it's not being confrontational. Confrontational would be something like if you tell your in-laws that you're going to go pray the rosary and they kind of, pout or fuss a little bit about you doing it. And being confrontational would be like, this is what I said. This is what we're going to do. Period. End of story. Too bad, so sad. You're going to have to deal with it. This is what we're doing. That's being more confrontational. There's a lot that is conveyed by tone of voice. So if you say, you know what, Mom and Dad, I appreciate that you want to watch a family movie, that you want to do dessert with the kids, but this is something that's important to us. We're going to go do it. Not, is it okay? Do not say, is it okay if we? No, don't ask for permission. This is your family. We're just going to go upstairs and pray the rosary. We'll be back in 20 minutes. And that's it. See, I hope that you can hear how non-confrontational that is. How your in-laws take it, that's on them. But if you approach any of these self-care practices with the tone of, this is just what I'm going to do. I'll be right back. I'm not doing this to inconvenience anybody. I'll be back in a few minutes. And we'll see you in a little bit. That's it. It doesn't have to be a confrontation. And I think we build things up in our heads a lot of times to be confrontational when they're really not. And we think it's going to be confrontational based on the reactions of our in-laws. But the reaction is on them. If we deliver what we're going to say in just a very matter-of-fact, very nonchalant, very lighthearted tone, but firm, how they react is on them. And I think one of the key things, this doesn't really have to do necessarily with just self-care practices, but one of the key things with helping your husband to see how toxic some of the behaviors are, how dysfunctional some of the behaviors are in his family, how he can become aware of those, is when you don't push back in a confrontational way. If you do say things with a smile, if you do say things in a lighthearted tone, if you do just remain very non-emotional, very matter-of-fact, but very firm, and his parents blow up, he's going to start to notice that my wife didn't provoke this. She just said she was just going to go upstairs to pray. She was just going to go to the bathroom. She was just going to go on a walk. And you blew up. Our actions speak a lot louder than words. That saying is very true. Our actions speak louder than words. And it goes both ways, right? Our in-laws can say that they love us and be sickeningly sweet with their compliments of us. Oh, you're just the most wonderful daughter-in-law. I couldn't have asked for a better mother for my grandchildren. How many times have we heard that? While she's bad-mouthing us to the rest of the family, while she's slandering our name to anyone that will listen, while our father-in-law is, calling us names back and forth to his family. When we take a step back and we see that our actions, how we deliver something, speak louder than the words that we say, our husbands will start to notice. Our husbands will notice at some point the light should flick on and he should start seeing, okay, my wife is not being the one that's confrontational. My parents are taking what she's saying, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to say, and blowing it out of proportion. So let me just recap some of the practices that I mentioned today, the 5 self-care practices that you can do anywhere. Number 1 is listen to Weightless. The track's name is Weightless by Marconi Union. Again, you can find that on YouTube. You can find that on iTunes. You can find it, I assume, pretty much anywhere. And again, there's like an 8 or 10 minute version of the track, and then there's like one that's like multiple hours if you want to fall asleep. I prefer to listen to it with earbuds because of the beats, but I guess you could listen to it without it. I would not listen to it while you're driving though, because it is a very relaxing thing. Unless you're riding, unless you're a passenger, but don't listen to it while you're driving. The second one is take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. The third is to take a walk. Listen to Weightless by Marconi Union while you're on a walk, or turn it into a nature walk and enjoy the time outside and the beautiful spring weather with your kids and have them, do a nature adventure treasure hunt. Look for a stick that's in the shape of a Y. Tell them to look for a leaf that's in the shape of a heart. Tell them to find a pink flower, a purple flower, a white flower. Tell them to find a bug, those kinds of things, just to take your mind off of the stress of being around your in-laws. The fourth is to go to bed early. Again, lots of benefits of going to bed early. Number 1, you get to recharge with your husband after a long day, stressful day, probably split apart and dealing with different issues of being around your in-laws and the stress that entails. And it allows you to have a clean break from your in-laws. You're putting the kids to bed. If you have kids, you go to bed too. And then you have a chance to get a good night's sleep, rest, and get up as refreshed as you possibly could be for the next day. And finally, but not the least of these on the list, is to pray. Even if you're just saying a simple prayer, Lord, help me. Jesus, help me. Lord, help me. Pray the rosary. Pray Hail Marys. Pray the Our Father. Pray the Glory Be. Anything that you can pray. Some of those that are stuck in your memory that are super easy to pray, those are great ones to break yourself out of an anxiety spiral. One prayer that I have used many, many times through the years that a friend of ours taught us, he said when he is filled with crazy thoughts that just won't stop, he says, Lord, give me your thoughts, not mine. And I might have to say that prayer about 20 or 30 times before I can turn off the noise that's in my head. But it is super simple. Lord, give me your thoughts, not mine. Super simple, just like the Hail Mary, like the Our Father, like the Glory Be, all those prayers that you have memorized. Just something simple to pray and have the peace that comes from our Lord just wash over you just by saying those things and acknowledging him in prayer. Just talking to God in prayer just does good things. It does good things. So I wish you a peaceful, relaxing Easter this weekend. And if it's not, know that I am praying for you. I pray for you every night. I remember you in my prayers, and know that each interaction with your in-laws where you are able to remain calm, where you are able to retain some aspect of your own peace, even if your in-laws are totally chaotic, even if they're flying off the handle, your husband sees it. And just pray that his eyes will be opened to how damaging the relationship is to not only your health, but to your marriage and to your children if you have them, and to your in-laws even. If just being around you triggers them to just be awful, that's something that definitely needs a lot of prayer. God bless you this Easter. I pray that it is a weekend filled with God's peace. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. I have a free gift for you that I would love for you to get. It is my free scripts for toxic in-laws. It's a little PDF that you can use to give you some examples of how to speak to your in-laws about certain issues. I'd love to give it to you absolutely free. So if you head to desiringpeace.com/gift, it will be there waiting for you. Just enter your name and email so you can start using it for inspiration on how to talk with your toxic in-laws. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to desiringpeace.com/gift to claim your gift now. Disclaimer. All content and information on this podcast and our website, including our programs, products, and or services, is for information and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychiatric, or mental health advice of any kind, and does not establish any kind of professional client relationship by your listening to this podcast or use of my website. A professional client relationship with you is only formed after we have expressly entered into a written agreement with you that you have signed, including our fee structure and other terms to work with you in a specific matter. Although we strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for any kind of professional advice, and you should not rely solely on this information. Always consult a professional in the area for your particular needs and circumstances prior to making any professional, medical, or mental health related decisions.